Yeah.
We're just winging it tonight. It's
Yeah.
okay. There will be days when we'll be more prepared, but
Right.
it's okay.
Okay.
Ready? Hello, and welcome to Ambassadors of Recovery Radio. I am your co-host, Desiree Villalpando.
And I am your host, Anthony Delatorre.
I don't know what I just did there. I was like, I am your co-host.
You're flagging them in.
I am like trying to do a dance, too much TikTok, even though I don't dance on TikTok. I am your co-host.
You did what was it, the Vogue?
Yeah. Give me.
Did I ever tell you the story about my dad?
No.
So I told you about my dad passing away. And I think I've told you this before. I feel closer to him. I don't know. I hate saying that because we've always been really close, but I just feel like our relationship continues even when he passed on.
Yes, good. That's a good way of putting it. Our relationship continues even though he's not here in the physical.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel him all the time, and I like because like sometimes my family gets sad. They're like, oh, I wish you could see Celia. I'm like, he sees her,
Yeah, that's amazing.
I've had dreams of him where like the first one I had of him when I was in what was it, residential?
Yeah.
I had this bad dream where I was like, I think I told you about that where I saw like a big shadow and stuff like that.
Like scary dream?
Yeah.
Yep, I think you did.
After that, I had another dream where my dad and I, we always crack jokes, just having fun. He loved going to the movies. And so we went to the movie theater, or I went to the movie theater, and I saw him sitting there. And so I was like, oh, hey, Dad, you're here. And he's like, he used to go, he's like, shut the fuck up, we're watching the movie, So I sit down or whatever, I'm watching the movie. But then I also see Celia's mom a seat ahead of him. And I don't know why, but for some reason in my head, I'm like, is that a sign that maybe she's, like, going to pass soon?
Yeah, we always have those crazy, like...
Well, because she's actively using, and
I think that all the time about my participants or anyone in struggling,
If they come.
Yeah, it's scary, but it never happens. It's like one of our subconscious
That's
fears.
probably right. But then throughout the dream, whatever, my dad was like kind of throwing popcorn at her.
No
so,
way.
Yeah, so he's like making me laugh, like, you know what I mean? Because at the time I'm working through DCS and trying to get her back, and she's not,
So what's interesting is, I believe that our spirits are always in the spirit realm. So I believe the spirit realm is here right now, and so our loved ones are here with us right now.
Yeah.
As if we're like living amongst them, which
Right.
our spirit really is, but we can't see them, feel them, or hear them because of this barrier, which is this physical realm.
Right.
So I believe that literally every night when we dream, we go through the veil, which is this illusion, which is the physical realm, and we are like aware of us being in the spirit realm.
Right.
But when we wake up, we're back in our dream in this little bubble of this like physical realm, so we can't feel or see them.
So like when we're sleeping, our mind is actually
In the
ready to
spirit
take it. It's ready to take it. You can.
So yeah, it's our spirit
Right.
is like still in the spirit realm, but we're aware of it when we're dreaming.
I'm going to tell you a dream but I'm going to tell you 2 points of view. One that solidifies it, and one I'm just like wondering what's really going on. All right, so the first one. So when I was at this residential treatment, the other half of the wing was for older people, older populations, right? So people.
Is this like Via Maria?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are a lot of people like that were passing away. So what they were trying to clear out that wing. Now that wing is open for the Tucson recovery part, whatever. But when I went there, they were trying to clear these rooms out to spread it, And so a lot of these people passed away. So we're clearing out their stuff. And you're allowed to like kind of keep some of their stuff too, So I got like this hamper. I was like, hell yeah, And then like this guy had I love watches. He had a collection of watches, I grabbed the watches, and in the watches there were some pictures, So then I got transferred to a transitional living home. And Des, I shit you not, I had a dream that I was walking into the kitchen, and I just out of nowhere, like I see this guy, but I can't see his face, but I can see his outline, and he looks just like the older guy, And I forget what he said to me. He said something to me or whatever, but he wasn't like scaring me. He wasn't, but I think it was kind of like, the message I got was like, leave my shit alone.
No way.
So I sent the watches back, and I was like, yeah, I'm good. And it stopped, but that made me,
So that was his spirit coming to tell
I
your
feel like
spirit.
it was.
Yes, no, it really was.
Yeah.
We are in this.
He wasn't like intimidated. He wasn't like being like scared, but he was just like.
And to be honest, like spirits in the spirit realm, there is no such thing as like demons, evil spirits. Our human minds make them scary.
So here's my question though: in that realm, but like, what are they doing all day? Like like we have routines to keep us busy, right? But what are they doing all day?
Okay.
And then like when we're like, I hope they're not seeing me like when I'm in the restroom.
I know, right? That's also a big fear too. Like, okay, mom, are
Right.
you watching me
Right.
while I'm like,
Right.
So I feel like they can, but there is no embarrassment or shame or
Right.
guilt on the spirit side. So it depends on where they were at when they passed, the vibrational frequency they were at when they passed. Because say like my mom passed in active use, right?
Uh-huh.
So she was still like her subconscious fears consumed her greatly.
Right.
So I believe for those that still were not able to overcome their fears in this physical life, might stay closer to the physical realm when they pass. So they will kind of hang out and live
Right.
vicariously through us.
Yeah.
They might still, have like some like cravings,
Yeah.
but they can't like kind of like the ghost on ghost. You know the one.
I swear.
Yes.
Listen. I swear to God. When you take a break, I was gonna say. So kind of like Ghost, the
Yeah,
whole system. Like in
yeah,
Ghost,
but
right?
they're not evil. They're
Right.
not angry.
But they're hanging- right.
They're hanging
Yeah.
out. They're watching their family.
Yeah.
They're still in love and light, but they're kind of like an addiction. You know how they have to like ask for and receive help.
Right.
So in
They
the
gotta
spirit
want it.
realm, yeah, they don't want to go to the higher realms in the spirit realm, which has all kinds of cool stuff like schools and healing centers, and you can go like your soul can go rest for however long. I don't know what time is like in spirit realm. When you have like a traumatic life or passing, you can just go rest. But for the majority of them, if they did not learn their lessons and they stayed in fear the majority of the time,
Right.
then they do they're I feel like they're too afraid to go and
To move on, to say bye.
to move
Yeah.
into this like full spirit realm
Yeah.
and go explore the spirit realm with their other loved ones.
Yeah.
So they stay close to the physical edge,
Yeah.
and they just live vicariously through us. Not in a negative, evil
No,
way.
no, right.
They're really here to like guide and watch us, but it's harder for them to let go because they still have sort of that attachment.
I could see my dad doing that for sure. He doesn't have a lot of family.
My mom is absolutely right here with me,
Yeah,
definitely.
I could see my dad. My dad, when he got his when he had the diagnosis for cardiomyopathy, he was on a transplant list. After he got the transplant, like I remember him telling me, he was like showing me like the handful of pills that he took a day. It was like a lot. It was like a horse pill. It was nuts. And he told me, he was like, I take these because I love you, for you kids. I want to be with the kids. Like he loved us a lot. So I could see him hanging on. He really didn't have a really good. His mom's still alive, but he didn't have a good relationship with his dad at all. What was really trippy was, so we went and had him buried in Arlington, and at the time my mom was kind of too distraught. It was just me and my sister that went out there, and so when they do a 21 gun salute, when they're about to do that, it starts to storm and rain, and the guy's like, we haven't ever had this happen, just because they had to shut it down so it doesn't, there's not going to, electrocute somebody with a gun, obviously, And so me and Nicole were just like, that's Dad for sure, because he was very modest, very humble. He didn't want anybody, I see him as a hero. He was, I told you about him being on the coal and stuff like that, and he didn't want anybody knowing that.
Amazing.
And,
So very humble.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it rained, and rain is always like very significant. Like, I feel like ancient civilizations and tribes and everything have this like more intimate connection with creation and the earth, and so they always talk about like good energy or omens with rain, and I always feel rain is something very like holy and sacred.
Rain was also something that I grew up with him, where like and it's something his tradition rubbed off on me. I love the rain season. So anytime it rained, he'd open all the windows, and just like let everything, just like he put music on, whatever, and it just was cool. He just like would mellow the house down, but it's soothing to me.
So he really liked the rain?
Yeah, he loved the
rain.
rain.
So it really reminds you of him?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, then yeah, for sure. It was definitely him.
Yeah.
And if you pay attention, there's always little signs of them all around you throughout the day, of them like trying to catch your attention, just to remind you that they're here with you.
Yeah.
So that just happened like last weekend with my mom. I dreamt about her, so we're always in the spirit realm with them because our spirit's always with them. The spirit realm is here, but I dreamt about her, and then I woke up, and there's this road runner that I always associate with my mom, and my meditation area is on the second floor to my house. And so it's like a little loft, and I have a meditation area in my loft on the second floor. So I was about to like start my meditation. I started grounding with my affirmation for the day. I think it was something like, I am entrusted with the gifts of God. So I start repeating that. And then I look, and there's a road runner walking across
An
the
actual
roof.
roadrunner?
Yes, walking across the roof, on top of the roof of the house next to us, which is a 1-story.
Yeah. That's nuts. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, Mom, okay. So I go into meditation. I'm like, okay, Mom, you got my attention. Is there anything you want to tell me? She's like, no, Hita, you're doing amazing. I just wanted to remind you that I'm here with you.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
that had to have been her for sure. On the roof.
Oh, yeah. Right as I looked, the roadrunner comes walking on the roof of the house.
Did it like stop and like look at you?
No. Well, it did when it got to the end of the house, because I was, at that point, I like jumped up at the window and I was like watching it. I was like, babe, go look at the roadrunner. And she came up, and then I'm looking at it, and it's like looking at us, and I'm like, hey. and Laura starts like trying to pull up the blinds. I was like, no, babe, no, you're gonna scare it. And sure enough, it like jumped off.
Yeah, that's funny.
I know, it's cool. So anyways, it sounds like this episode has kind of moved into stuff about like our deceased loved ones and grief and loss. So that's good. We can just,
You want to stay on that?
Well, yeah.
Since we're already here.
That is how we're usually like, led sometimes.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Is to just like go with the flow.
Yeah, I think that. So I think that's. Yeah, I agree. If it's leading us to that, that's something maybe something needs to be said, or someone needs to hear it. Right?
And a lot of people are probably. I mean, more than anything, a lot of people's main driver to substance use disorder, that even leads to their addiction progressing, is grief and loss.
Right. So when I was younger, I remember this day to this day. It's really crazy, but I was at my nana's house, and I remember. So my uncles, like they were amazing. My Uncle Joseph and Uncle Robert, they'd always take me down to this movie rental place to get movies. And so this one night, they were telling me like, no, you're gonna stay home, and it was just really weird that they're not gonna let me go with them, you know. So I'm sitting there, and then sure enough, I remember when I just get this phone call. I just remember the phone drop, and she's just like, you know, your uncles were in a car accident. And so like my uncle,
your uncle was in a car accident?
Both of them were. Yeah, my uncle my uncle Jojo, he went through I think the front of the windshield, and he was like, it was actually weird when the EMTs came on site. The first thing he said to them was like, my nephew Anthony's in the back, you know. But he was thinking that, you know.
He thought you were with him?
Yeah. And
so
then,
were you really close to him?
Oh yeah, my Uncle Jojo, yeah, super close to him. Yeah, he was. Is
this your dad's brother?
No, it's my mom's.
Okay.
My mom's. Yeah, he. I remember. So he like raised me on horror movies. So like Freddy Krueger, Jason, all that stuff. So I remember I had a chicken pox really bad, right? And so like I remember I was like not wanting to leave cause he's like, we gotta go to the grocery store, and I was like, I'm gonna stay here, and he was like, if you don't come with me right now, Freddy's gonna get you. And I was like, fucking all right, let's go. all bumped up, right?
That sounds like an uncle. My uncle used to scare the crap out of us too with the crazy mask in the middle of the night.
Yeah, so I after him passing, he passed away. I want to say, I think it was on site. My other uncle, he went into a coma, and he's brain injured.
So your uncle died from the car accident?
Yeah,
and how old are you?
I was like 4 years old.
4 years old?
Yeah.
And was that the uncle that said you were in the seat with him?
Yeah, well, yeah, my Uncle Jojo, he passed, and then my Uncle Robert, I was close with him as well. But
wait, which one said you were there with them?
My Uncle Joseph.
The one that passed?
Yeah.
He said that before?
Yeah. He was worried.
So your
he thought,
spirit is probably with him, like always.
Well, he's my guardian angel for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, no, my Uncle
my
Jojo for sure.
gosh.
I pray to him. He's for sure with me.
Mm-hmm.
But that, like, if you looked at pictures of me as a kid, you could see me just like shut down. Like I just, you know what I mean? I just didn't deal
like
with
the
it.
progression of your grief.
Yeah.
And just like the immensity of it, right? Because like with young children, I mean, they're still so close to the spirit realm, so I don't think like they grasp like the enormity of this reality and what it means to pass or transition, you know.
There's a really good book that I read through when I was going through DCS. I think it's called The Whole Brain Child. and it actually talks about child brain development. And one of the stories in there that they go into is an example of a 3-year-old who was with her babysitter, who went through this traumatic event. She was involved in a car accident, and so like she saw the babysitter, get in a car accident, she got taken away in the ambulance, and so when they were talking to this child, whatever, she was just like really shut down, and so like they helped her cope and get through it, but they explained it in the way of understanding, like there's upstairs brain and downstairs brain, upstairs and a downstairs brain. The downstairs is like your fight or flight, that's that, and then your upstairs is like logical, trying to figure things out. And when you're a kid, you don't have those mixed in yet. And then there's left and right mixing together. So really, it's all you know how to do is either go. If you can't figure it out on this end, you're going to go to this end. So if it doesn't make sense to you what happened, you shut down and go into this fight, flight, or freeze mode. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So this child is like trying to process this, and these parents are trying to help them. And so it's just like anything else in trauma. It's good to talk about stuff. So they would talk to the kid or whatever, and help her with little words, articulate. She would say like woo woo, like she would say in the ambulance, like woo woo, And so they would talk to the little girl and say, yeah, the babysitter, her name, she was. You guys were in the car. You got hit by, another car.
And
the
how old was
she? She was 3 or 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it helped her process, and then explaining, like, when she got out of the hospital, having her come and see her. But the bigger picture of it is understanding, like, you got to process that stuff, versus, like, I think that we don't give enough credit for kids. And I think also as a parent seeing it, I think it's like you feel helpless. So you're just like, it's easier just to maybe shove it under the rug and not deal with it.
Yeah.
And so then
But I think we're moving away from all of that because we're coming from a generation
for sure.
shoved everything
right
under the rug,
Yeah.
and then now we're dealing with the consequences, and
Right.
I mean, it's a lot to sort of like hold everything in and suppress everything, especially for men. Like I always tell men,
Right.
like I feel for you guys, like. It's probably really hard to be able to like express your emotions, like your natural human emotions that
Right.
are supposed to be expressed and talked about. But instead, you're taught, you're a man, you need to be strong.
Right.
So those generations, my grandma was very similar, just like shoving things
Right.
under the rug, and we're moving away from that. And the younger
No, for sure.
generations are going to help us move into this way of healing and processing trauma and being open and honest and transparent, so we can all come together and like support each other in a transparent way without judgment.
Right.
So that's what we're moving away from. So yeah,
that's the goal, is every generation get a little bit better from the last one, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting because we were talking about kids, but like kids are always, they don't have that filter. They're always very blunt and open and honest and transparent. We're gonna learn a lot from the kids, like even the younger generations, like 3, 4, because they're gonna lead us back into the best way of like healing and processing trauma. So I think even in those moments of them experiencing severe traumatic events, we have a lot to learn from kids.
That's you said it right there. That hit the nail on the head. My daughters, I'm telling you right now, it was the most like eye-opening experience. Taking care of Celia being like 2, and even going to like visits and her being 1, and I'm just like seeing how like I'm cradling her and like how helpless she is. Like she needs me, but at the same time I'm looking at her and I'm like she has no idea how much I need her.
Yeah.
Like how much she is driving and pushing me.
Helping you saved your life.
Yeah.
Dang,
yeah.
that's crazy.
So what I was getting to before was so not dealing with that trauma, and it's actually funny because we were talking about this recently with some of the participants. I was talking about when you get to a point where you have conditioned yourself to not feel that stuff and not address that stuff, and then as stuff continues to progress and other traumatic events continue to happen, that's the norm. That's what you just bottle it up and not deal with that. So then it's basically waiting for a perfect incident to happen, right? The perfect, like the stars align, the cup to overflow. And I gave them the example of I tore my ACL and got on prescription medications. Obviously I didn't take them as prescribed, but this was been building up for a long time, right? By
the conditioning of suppressing everything.
Right, and so as soon as something, because a big thing that they talk about is like you want that connection, and you want something to hear your pain.
Yeah.
So that substance was hearing that pain and numbing that, and I'm being honest with you, my soul it's scary to say this. It gives me like, I fell in love with it. Like that was what I wanted. Like I was like, this is what I want to continue doing.
I hear that a lot. Like, I've heard
Yeah.
a lot of like goodbye letters to
Yeah.
their drug of choice. I've heard a lot of like just writings, beautiful creative writings from participants over the years and their stories.
Yeah.
And a lot of them talking about, that instant they just like fell in love. Like,
Yeah, it's scary.
yeah.
It's scary, but I think that it's when you're having all these people that have those events and you're going through this process, like it just takes that one thing. That could have very well been somebody saying, "How are you doing? Let me help you," right? But when you're just like not conditioned to speak up on it,
And you're constantly in fight or flight and survival.
right?
Yeah, and you're used to suppressing everything. Yeah,
That's the easy way out.
Yeah, because it's another form of suppression, but
Right.
but a form of suppression that makes you feel really good for the moment, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like we are gonna continue to like really, really learn how to move past that initial discomfort, because we're all at a certain level addicted to something outside of ourselves to avoid
Right.
what we're feeling, the discomfort, the grief, the sadness,
Right.
irritability, whatever it is, different forms of fear, right?
Mm.
And we have all these distractions: food, sugar, coffee, substances, relationships, work, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Distracting us, asking for our attention. So when we are finally not like overstimulated and we're able to just like sit with ourselves and be present with ourselves, like that is the most healing thing we can do. But when it comes to that
It's
time,
a scary thing to do.
it's very uncomfortable, yeah.
Right.
And we have to get through that initial discomfort, and we have to just sit with it. We have to just like observe it and not react.
Right.
So observe your thoughts and your emotions coming up, your irritability, your discomfort. Cry if you need to. Observe it without reacting. So, maybe you might get irritable and your initial thought is, okay, well, F this, I'm going to go, eat,
Right.
whatever. Just sit with it, let yourself feel it without reacting, without, giving in to the thoughts that come with that discomfort. And if we could just do that a little bit more each time, because all of us are constantly going through this ebb and flow of trying to move from seeking, discomfort from food and everything outside of us
Yeah.
to sitting right now, right here, and like really feeling ourselves in the moment, getting through that discomfort so we can finally get to a place of comfort, like within ourselves, without anything outside of us.
And what's really really wild about that whole concept is it's something that's very key and basic, but people it's especially in addiction, it's one of the most most challenging things ever. You're telling me to be
Yes.
comfortable in discomfort, but like and when all I've done for so many years is just
Run.
avoid that,
Yes.
numb it, let's not deal with it.
Yes.
That's my reaction to anything.
Yes.
And so now you're telling me to face that. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes work. I can give you a perfect example. Last week I think there was a day I wanted to work. I just wasn't feeling myself. I just normally I'm pretty positive, pretty
But we have days,
looking out.
yeah, of
Right.
course.
And so, but I just kind of like sat with it and just like I talked to one of my coworkers, just kind of like try to figure out like maybe what it was, and I think I figured out some of the things that maybe have been causing it. But it's taken time and effort to actually, like you said, sit in it and actually try to just allow yourself to feel it. Now, I tell people that I work with, participants and clients all the time, sitting with it is different. There's a difference between sitting with it and lingering on it. Lingering on it isn't going to get you anywhere.
Yes,
right?
it gets you more stuck
Yeah.
in the discomfort.
Dreaming positively or negatively, great. I'm so happy to hear that you want to do this, but you're still doing nothing, right? The opposite end of it. I can't do anything. You're doing nothing. How can you know what you can do if you don't put anything into it, right? But it's hard to get yourselves out of that routine of just that continuous like cycle of just well, this is what I'm comfortable with. This is what's been, and it's hard for someone to actually face that and see like, okay, I do need to feel this, and it's something I still for sure I agree with you. I think it's a universal thing. I think we all need to work on that.
Yeah, and I think it's more simple than we believe or perceive it to be.
Yes.
because if we just took 5 minutes a day for ourselves, put our phones down, like remove all distractions, make sure you're hydrated, you ate, so 5 minutes just for yourself, just to like try to like focus on, it's just mindfulness, if we
Right.
just did 5 minutes a day, we would see our reactions to everything, all the chaos around us would become more and more neutral. And it would be harder for even the most tragic extreme events to move our peace,
Yeah.
to disrupt that peace.
Right.
5 minutes a day, that's all it takes to just like focus on your breath. Do it before you go to bed, anything. Anyways, like this is everything everyone learns in treatment and everything, but when you're in treatment, you're in
Right.
fight or flight, and so it's hard to focus on all that stuff or even believe that it's
Right.
doing anything for you. So this is something I will continue to teach my participants,
Right.
and help them practice with the guided meditations, and even like, so my meditations are 15 minutes, but 5 minutes a day, just silence and sitting with yourself.
I think the other part of like self-reflection is, a lot of, especially in addiction, like you want things now, like, and it's really admirable, and it's really, encouraging when you see someone, like they call it the pink cloud phase, when someone's like
15 days to 45 days of sobriety.
right,
Yes.
and it's like they're on top of the world. You could, you got
Anxiety, depression decrease. Yes.
right, and so it's like, oh my gosh, I can conquer this, I can do this, I can do that. Okay, yeah, let's let's do that, But at the end of the day, it's reflecting on this took time for you to get to where you're at. Now, I'm not saying it's going to, I think it's a third of my life I calculated at one point, maybe a little bit more, that I put into being active in addiction. But is it going to take me a third of my life to get out of it? No, but it's going to take some time.
And
right?
a lot of internal work.
And if you accept that, and I think then the next step is honesty, looking at yourself and saying, okay, because when you self-reflect and accountability, right? When you self-reflect, you got to see these traumatic events happen. Yes, they were outside my control. What was inside my control was how I reacted to those events. Yeah?
And so how do we get ourselves to not react to these outside circumstances?
Right.
And to still remain within our peace. 5 minutes a day, that's it.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that was great.
Yeah, I like it.
We covered a few topics.
Yeah, we kind of
Grief
went
and
over.
loss,
Yeah.
spirit round.
Yeah.
Lots of cool stuff.
Let's see here. If we have a little bit of time, I want you to actually go. We might as well just cover it now. So I remember a while ago we were talking about, and this because I really felt like when you it just like blew my mind when you're talking about this to me. I was talking about how like I had that dream where I felt like it was we were talking about addiction spirits.
Okay.
And I was telling you how like I felt when I was in residential, like I had this dream when I was like frozen, like when you're, what's it called?
Sleep paralysis.
Yes. And I saw like this big shadow coming over, and
Yeah.
I just felt like that was that spirit, that addiction spirit to me, And I remember you talking to me about how like that's your fear.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my god,
It
like
is your
that,
fear.
Yeah, I was like that.
Physical manifestation.
Mind blown.
That your mind projects out.
Mind blown.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Explain that, because that was good
Okay,
stuff. Yeah.
so tell them what spirit.
Okay, so addiction spirits. This is something I heard from my ex. She was telling me like, addiction spirits are real. Like you would start if you've ever seen somebody OD and maybe like Narcan, when they come back, you might see them speaking in tongues. It's like it's nuts. Like they just
Right.
like you're not that's not the
making
person.
sense,
Right.
and they're speaking a whole different language.
That's not that person.
Right.
And then you also, I think it's also a form of justifying like you're just not yourself anymore, right? So it's easier to explain that you're possessed, right? But the thing behind spirit entities is like is the belief that there is something, like we were talking about good or bad, right? Spirits, but there are bad spirits, and they cling on to and they feed off of you in the depths of your addiction because you are throwing out negative energy, and that's what they want, right?
Right.
So that's
which is partly true, yes.
So that's what it's about. That's what I thought about it, and that's what when I saw that dream, when I saw that shadow, that's what I identified it as.
As like an actual demon entity that came to like prey on you.
I saw it as it was me, my evil. It was me and my addiction. So it was a version of me that was saying no, come back, right? But I didn't want But when I talked to you about it, and then you shared what you're gonna share now, that it really blew my mind, and it makes a whole lot of sense.
Well, you said that it is sort of like a version of you, right? I feel like that's somewhat true. And the whole idea of these like addiction spirits, like it's an entity or a spirit that attaches to you and feeds off of, your negative energy.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's truth to all of what you just said.
Okay.
But when I learned about sleep paralysis, because I had sleep paralysis for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to go through my deepest, darkest fears in sleep paralysis with, seeing
Yeah.
the same dark figures. And you're in your same room, in your same
can't
bed.
move, yeah.
And you literally think you're awake, but
Yeah.
you're not.
You have to like shake yourself awake.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes you shake yourself awake and then you fall out of bed and you think you're awake and you're still dreaming.
Yeah. It's the worst.
So yeah, one of the last big major sleep paralysis dreams I had this download, and then I got some guidance, and basically like I realized like our human minds and everything we've experienced in this world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like all the trauma, all the like really bad stuff, death, everything, like all of those fears, like especially like in our dreams, because our dreams are literally like a reflection of our subconscious fears.
Processing.
Yeah. So those figures are literally just like a holographic projection, a material manifestation of our fears.
Okay.
So like guilt is one of the biggest
Shame.
fears.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Guilt. And what is guilt? What form of fear is that?
Form of fear is guilt.
Yeah, like what are you afraid of when you feel really guilty? You're afraid of like you didn't do something right, you didn't do enough, you're unworthy.
Yeah,
What
right.
is that?
Unworthy, the shame, right, and feeling like I let people down.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Let myself down.
any sort of entity, whether you see it in your dreams, sleep paralysis, or any sort of like dark figure that people believe in, it is literally just a manifestation of their fears.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I love that. Like when I heard that, I made so much. So then I processed your version and your reflection on it, and I was like, well, then when we talked about it, that was probably what that was me, because I remember at the time I had used for my last time actually in residential, and I was actually about to get kicked out, and I remember like my therapist at the time was like, she just, I was crying. She was just like letting me know like you're willing to risk going to jail, messing up your chance with drug court, losing your daughter for one more high. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, it doesn't. And so I remember I just was like, I really want this. I really want this. Please, let me stay here. They let me stay there. And I remember doing a visit with my daughter, and I was just like, man, I gotta pull my head out of my ass. I gotta do something. And then I had that dream. And then after hearing what you're saying, obviously this is like years. Well, this is a year later. I mean, when I talked to you about it, I processed. I'm like, you know what that was? That was my fear of not wanting to let go of that
version of yourself.
Yes. And I also in the same
crazy.
Yeah.
So you came up with your conclusion based on your experience. That was your truth.
Right.
That is, I fully believe that's exactly what it was.
I also had in that same night, I had a dream that I was out using with my my roommate, and we were in this car, and I remember like the dream felt so real, and I was like, we gotta get back, and I was just like, I just remember my dream, I was like, oh my god, I fucked up, like I'm gonna, like they know we're gone, I'm gonna lose everything.
Just that fear of like messing up.
I'm gonna lose everything, and then I woke up and I was so grateful that I was where I was at. I was like, thank God I didn't go do that.
Yeah.
And so I felt like that was a fight within myself and telling myself, because I had told myself like, no, we got to do this, we got to take this seriously. And I feel like from that day forward, it was me putting 100 into everything. But I think it was my fear. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Overcoming your subconscious fears.
Yes.
Yeah. Through your dreams and through your waking reality.
Yes, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, dang, that's amazing. It took like that shift and even that dream for you to like see it and then overcome it, and then from that point forward, you made the decision to do everything in your power to like stay sober, which is not easy.
At the time, I didn't like. I came to this whole conclusion after we had talked, but it made sense then. Like when I look back on it, I was like, that's exactly what was going on, But from that point, when I went through it till when we talked about it, I was convinced. I was like, that was my addiction spirit, and that was something trying to pull me back, But when I thought, I was like, that's exactly what that was. That was my fear. That was me. Yep. That was like,
it was you. Yes.
Coming to epiphany and ready to handle stuff.
And your fears. Yep. Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for overcoming your fears. It's not easy. We all still have a lot of fears to face.
Well,
and
as you know,
overcome.
I'm appreciative for meeting you because you drop a lot of enlightenment.
Yeah. You
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Everyone they're like, oh, who's the guy on the podcast? I'm like, well, he's very, very great gentleman. I don't share your information. Obviously, you're sharing it to the world, but
Yeah.
I'll let you do that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'd always tell them you're great.
I appreciate it. Stay humble, keep moving.
Okay, awesome. Well, I guess we can end there then.
Okay, let's end, and I will end with my closer. So I want to remind you guys that you deserve nothing but the best, and if you're struggling, just keep going. Never give up.
Yes, and I also want to end with my reminder, which is if you suffer from substance use disorder or you're in early recovery or recovery, just everyone, but especially if you suffer from substance use disorder, we see you, we hear you, and we are here for you. Yay! Then we end with
Done.
Yeah!
Thank you for watching Ambassadors of Recovery Radio. Till next time.